Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. And thank you especially to the people who make this possible for you with their support at patreon.com/SW7x7. So we're doing an Acolyte Rewatch. Yes, it's pretty fresh, but actually that's kind of the point, to see if there are some interesting things in the earlier parts of the series that we can tie in to what happens in later parts of the series. Today we're talking about Destiny, which is the third episode and the first of the two flashback episodes. So the first thing I want to flag is that we are given an Osha at 8 years old who already has a couple of red flags in terms of the dark side of the Force. First of all, she is fearful, particularly about the Ascension ceremony that she and Mae are about to go through, and whatever the mothers have been telling her about this, it's not allaying her fears. Mother Anastasia tells her that the Ascension ceremony is about walking through fear and then sacrificing a part of yourself, and Osha is clearly not on board with this. Even when they get to the ceremony and Mae goes through it and everything is fine, it certainly appears like there is nothing to fear from what happens, and yet Osha is definitely not on board with it. Even when Mother Anastasia asks her the question about whether she wants to protect the secrets of the Coven and continue the legacy, she's like, I mean, it's evident that she is just saying yes in that moment because she feels pressured to do so. But maybe at that moment it's not about fear, it's about selfishness. Yeah, which is a little bit harder to put on a kid, but there are definitely some things that when you think about Chimere later on in the series, and he talks about all he wants is freedom to be able to use power the way that he wants to use it, that's essentially what Osha wants here. She wants to be a part of the Jedi, not a part of the Coven of Witches. She wants to exercise her power in that particular fashion, have the freedom to choose how she wants to wield her power. And as Mother Anastasia notes, she is a very powerful girl. There are other aspects of this selfishness that show up aside from deciding that she wants to join the Jedi Order. There's the stuff about how she is keeping stuff from Mae, like filling out her journal and not sharing it with Mae. Thinks that they are different people, even though Mae says we're the same, and Osha insists that they're different. She wants to do different things. She wants to have her own space and her own belongings. And Mother Anastasia is right about Osha's activities and talking about how she's testing boundaries and that's normal for a child. Really, this kind of behavior is normal for a child. That selfishness is not necessarily an indication that Osha is going to go down the dark path. However, when you add it on to everything else, yeah, it kind of skews in that direction. And then there's also the whole business about the power of one versus the power of two versus the power of many. And Osha is more about the power of one, even as when Mother Anastasia tells the girls to block her, she retreats behind Mae, and Mae is the one who holds off Mother Anastasia's force advance, or threat advance, if you will. Speaking of that, and I would love your feedback on this because I cannot think of another option myself, and my son actually suggested to me that this might be the first time, if not one of the first times, that we've actually seen a visual manifestation of the Force. When Mother Anastasia is talking about the thread and she has her hands, top and bottom, and it looks like there's a glowing thread starting to weave between them. And I don't know if we've actually seen any sort of visual representation of the Force like that. Then we have the whole question of the creation of the twins, which is darkly hinted at in conversations between Mother Anastasia and Mother Coral. And I did see, it looks like at the very beginning of the episode when they're giving you the wide shot of Brendok, there looks like there's a place similar to the stone on Tython that we see in The Mandalorian, where the Mandalorian brings Grogu to communicate with the galaxy and hopefully catch the attention of a Jedi. And considering how we see the mask that Chimere wears and that then Osha tries on later on in the series, and how Chimere's eyes turn that, filmy black, and we actually saw that happen with Mae in the flashback in the early episodes, right? When she said, I'll kill them all, and then her eyes turn black the same way that Padawan Torben's eyes go black when Mother Anastasia possesses her. Possesses him. It makes me wonder whether whether Plagueis found the virgins on Brendok and whether he was somehow involved with these witches and helped with the creation of the twins. We know many decades later that he's able to influence midichlorians to create life from a distance, but maybe he's able to do it up close and personal at this point in his power. And then there's the Jedi's involvement. They, as we learn later, are also searching for this virgins. They are not intending to find this coven of witches, and yet they stumble upon them because Osha has been leaving the fortress walls when she's not supposed to. And they really do come across as arrogant. I mean, Indara saying that they have the right to test the children, but then saying with your permission, of course, but it doesn't sound like there's really any permission being offered, even though, as the witches note, Brendok is not a part of the Republic, so the Jedi shouldn't have any authority there, and yet the witches are aware that if they go against the Jedi, there are going to be problems. They've already been identified as being persecuted because their powers are being viewed as dark, and they don't think that they're going to have any options if they don't go along with the Jedi. So, yeah, not a great look overall. But it's even worse when they test Osha and tell her that she has to have the courage to say what she wants, and she says, I want to be a Jedi. And then she's told that you have to have the courage to tell the truth. I mean, really? It's just, oh my gosh, it's absolutely crazy. And then, of course, we see at the end of the episode that Saul says Mae started a fire and it destroyed everything. So he blames Mae for the entirety of everything that happened, which, as we know, is not the case at all. Yes, she started a fire. Yes, it put Osha's life in danger, but that's not the reason why things went down the way they did. Mae is not at fault for the death of their mother. Mothers, plural, or the rest of the witches of Brendok. And he tells her this grief that she's feeling, that she'll never feel this way again. I mean, that's not a promise that you can make, even though I can see why an adult would want to make a promise like that to a child. But yeah, man, he lied to her, and then Indira continued that lie, as we well know. Now, I would agree that being a Jedi, one of the things that would be important to them is having the courage to tell the truth. And not good. This is just not good on so many levels. The situation the Jedi have set themselves up in, just to be clear about that. And the last thing I want to flag is that this is now the third episode, and it's the third episode in which we see Osha wake up. It happens a couple of times in the first episode. First, when she's in her mech bunk on the Trade Federation ship and we see her wake up, and then later in the episode, after she's crashed on Karlak, she wakes up from the effects of the crash, right? And then in the second episode, she's asleep on her bunk in the Jedi ship and then wakes up. And then here in this episode, at the end, she is unconscious after the events of what happened on Brendok, and she wakes up on the ship. I don't particularly have any sense of whether this is something that goes through all of the episodes, but now that it's happened 3 episodes in a row, I'm going to be keeping an eye out for it. And that's what I've got for you on our rewatch of Destiny, things that I wanted to flag in light of what we know about the season as a whole, and that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. If you enjoy the show, please help me get it out to more people who might be interested in this dose of Star Wars joy. You can do that by just telling people. You can do that by telling algorithms with your ratings and reviews and likes and comments and subscribes and follows. And you can also help me as an independent creator continue to produce this podcast, and you can learn more about that at patreon.com/SW7x7. And it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for this episode, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyrighted by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.